Hey, what's going on YouTube? I'm Blaze, and today I'm going to give you 5 crucial tips for getting a decent kill streak with Grievous. A lot of you have probably realised already that General Grievous's damage values are off the chart, and quite frankly borderline overpowered, but more importantly that his huge hitbox and low movement capabilities make him very vulnerable in Galactic Assault. As a result, I'm sure many of you have difficulties racking up those kills with the General, so without further ado, and in no particular order, here are 5 crucial tips for Grievous killstreaks. Number 1. Never engage more than 3 enemies. Although obvious to some, this tip is the definition of life or death when playing as Grievous. In fact, if there's one thing you take away from this video, it should be the following. Always check who and how many you're engaging before actually attacking. Always check the radar as well to know if any heroes potentially nearby, and never engage head on if there are more than 3 enemies in the open and partially spread out. I have learned that the magic number of enemies Grievous can eliminate in one go, head on and safely is 3. This is of course not the case if they're so close that you can deal damage to all of them in one go, or if there is sufficient cover for you to dash behind, thereby splitting the 1v X number of enemies into X number of 1v1s. And of course if you find yourself in a situation surrounded by 3 or more enemies, I suggest just jumping out of there, claw rushing out of there if you've got claw rush up, or just straight up dashing behind cover and making your way back to your team. This leads me on to my second shorter point, which is to always use Grievous's jump. Unlike Vader's or Palpatine's, Grievous's jump is much faster but still almost as high, making this one of his most valuable assets. Seriously, using this to disengage can save your metric ton of damage, but using it to engage however has even better results, leading on to my third point, which is to save Claw Rush for large groups of enemies, heroes or special units, or for emergency escapes. You will recall that my first point was that you should never take on more than 3 enemies. Well, this isn't strictly true. You shouldn't take on more than 3 enemies with your jump alone. If you have Claw Rush, however, and those enemies are fairly grouped up, it is very easy to rush in there, deal 260 damage to a couple of them with the animation cancel, and then follow up to the other ones with one hitting them, as long as you've got the Jedi trained card at uncommon level. However, Claw Rush is still actually a very useful ability, mainly for its escaping purposes, particularly because of its damage resistance, so I think it's got something like a 40% damage reduction whilst it's active, and a very high movement speed, so you actually want to use this for escapes as well, and for heroes and for special units, so really wasting this on the lone regular isn't worth it. It's much better to chase these guys, and if they run away from you there's not much you can do unless you have the thrust surge up, at which point you could try that, but that's always not that reliable. Whereas the first 3 tips have all been about generic encounters, this tip is very much situational, but it can pay off with some epic multi-kills and some of the best flanks you'll ever have, and this is very particular, but pay attention because it can really pay off, and it's basically just switch things up, so never attack in a straight line. Because Grievous has got such a high hitbox, and he's got virtually no block against blaster bolts, it's very important that you move from the side, or from behind if you can, when approaching enemies. So what you want to do with any kind of linear game mode, I mean Galactic Assault, but any linear objective, is you want to move between objectives as much as you can, so that you approach the enemies when they're off guard and when they're not directly aiming at you. You will see in the background gameplay that I'm playing on Kashyyyk, which is one of the better maps to try this on, and the most important thing here is that not only can you approach people from the side, which I'm doing a lot of and catching them unaware, but if I find myself in a large group of enemies, maybe a hero who I didn't realise was there in the first place, because they're not fully aware that I'm there, I can actually get out of there without taking any damage. No damage, not even using Claw Rush either. I can just jump straight back out and it's like I was never there. The 5th and final tip, although simple, is actually one of the most important in this video, and this doesn't just apply for Grievous, but for all saber heroes, and it's basically you don't want to overswing. So let's say Grievous is behind an assault, right? His swing should deal 260 minimum damage. So to swing twice, press that button twice, is stupid, because then you'll hit the assault, but then any of his teammates standing next to you can just shoot you whilst you're performing the relatively long swing animation after that. So you only want to swing for how many swings it takes, and this way you'll move very fluidly through the battlefront, and it won't be nearly as clunky or as dangerous as it otherwise is for people who haven't quite got used to this. Hey guys, that's the end of the video. Now I'd really appreciate it if you gave your feedback about the voiceover I'm doing, because actually the first 2 tips and the intro were scripted, but the other half was unscripted, so I'd appreciate it if you could tell me which one you prefer. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe. Remember, it doesn't cost you anything.